Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. On October 10th, there was an update to the website, and a lot of the accelerators noticed it. There was a lot of traffic on Discord, and what happened is if you were an accelerator, your launch edition Aptera estimated delivery used to say H1, you know, first half of 2025, and then everyone was reporting that first half of 2025 delivery date got changed to 2026. Now, people were expecting a second half of 2025 switch for the accelerators, but not a switch to 2026. And so that caught a bunch of people off guard. Now, the picture I have here is someone whose reservation slot 491, but there were people who were like saying, oh, I'm 200 something. Mine says 226. And then there were people that were saying that they were like 135 and it said 2026 as well. And I think the lowest number reported on Discord was someone that had a reservation from Arizona of 109, and his also moved to 2026. And that was surprising. And we got confirmation from Chris McCannon that basically what's happening is we asked him what slot is supposed to be the 2025-2026 cutoff, and it's 60. So if you're at 60, they are currently thinking that they will be able to produce and deliver 60 vehicles by the end of 2025. And then if you're 61, that's probably going to get pushed into 2026. So I mean, that's not a hard and fast number, but currently, as of now, they are thinking that that's going to be the cutoff. And so I wanted to, this is some very good statements from Chris. We wanted to align all our messaging between the US Capitol deck, our internal documents, what we communicate to the public, and what we deliver. It helps nobody if we have a date in the dashboard that we feel like we can't hit. This is the first time in the dashboard is taking into account specific delivery slots, which is pretty sick that we are now at a point we are able to do that. So that's very good. So I wanted to confirm this information. And as you guys might remember, there is this gentleman. His name is Doug Crockford. He is the creator of JSON or JavaScript Object Notation. And initially, he was an accelerator, and he was a pretty high position. I think like 14, 15 initially. And he wanted the 1,000 mile range Aptera, but he had this, slot number 15, 16 for the launch edition, and he didn't really want the launch edition. So he emailed me and he offered me the slot. Now, of course, I'm still buying the vehicle and paying for it, but he was offering me his slot, which was extremely generous of him. And then what is even crazier, and it shows you what a kind of a generous and upstanding guy he is later on he decided that he did want the launch edition. He decided, the 1,000 miles is going to take a while to get here, and launch edition's good enough. I want the launch edition. So what he could have easily done is just said, hey, I decided I want the launch edition, so sorry, I won't be able to offer you that slot anymore. And that would have been a perfectly normal thing to do. And I would have, completely understood that. But instead, what he did is he invested even more money, got a secular accelerator slot around the same number, and got himself two launch accelerator slots that were pretty high, and kept giving me one basically. And I told him, hey, you don't have to do that. But he was just like, no, man, I told you I was going to do it. And so I'm going to stand by my word, which is amazing. Not expected. And I think taking back the slot would have been a very normal thing to do. So anyways, so I reached out to Mr. Crockford and I asked him, hey, where are we sitting on the slot? And currently the slot that has been gifted to me is slot number 41. And that one changed from H1 2025 to 2025. So it doesn't talk about the half, it just says 2025. So that is accurate. If you have, so at least we know that a number of 41 still says 2025. But if you have a number that's at least 109 or above, we know we're confirmed that that says 2026. And Chris says that it's 60. So I think those information points all make sense. Now, I think this is more evidence of Aptera getting more realistic about their delivery timeline as time goes on. And there was this video that I made, what was it, about 2 months ago, about Aptera's timeline getting more realistic as we get closer to production. So if you see here, this is the June 24 investor webinar. At that point, they were saying that they were going to deliver 5,000 units by the end of 2025, which I thought was grossly optimistic and probably not happening. And you can watch my commentary about that webinar. And then if you look at the Aptera Motors investor presentation, this is the presentation that you can download as a prospective investor in the convertible note offering from US Capital. If you look at this, they are projecting 371 vehicles sold by the end of 2025, which is a large delta from 5,000. So it goes from 5,000 to 371. And 371 seems a very somewhat arbitrary number, but it had something to do with their models that they were doing. And now we know that their current projection is 60. So that's not a huge difference in total numbers, but it's down to 60 in 2025. And then one of our community members, Will, on Discord, put together this pretty cool model, and he has a large amount of experience in product development. And so this is a speculative production ramp. Okay, so speculative. This does not have any inside information for Aptera more than we know. This is all based on just publicly available information and Will's experience in product development and managing an assembly line and production, basically. And so what we know now is that they're expecting to produce about 60 by the end of the year. So that's the total production of vehicles is in this orange line, and then you use the right-sided y-axis for that, and the left axis is the weekly rate of how many they produce per week. And so we know now that eventually they were initially saying 371, and then at Everything Electric, Steve Fambrell was saying between 100 and 200 by the end of 2025. And now the Accelerator update tells us 60 by the end of 2025. So they're making incremental changes to that thing, but it makes me feel good that they still have some confidence that they will be able to produce some by the end of 2025. So this is Will's projected. This is what he thinks is going to happen. Okay, again, this is no inside information from Aptera. This is just pure speculation based on publicly available information. So what we know is in order to get this kind of ramp, Will says that in his experience, production ramps are very slow. And a very fast production ramp in his conversation, because Will is an accelerator and he's a pretty high number accelerator as well. So he has had some one-on-one time with Chris Anthony. And Chris Anthony's based some of this ramp time on his boat production company, which Will feels like boat production is much, much simpler than vehicle production. And so the ramp is actually much more aggressive to get to 40 a day. And then the 40 a day number, if you guys remember, is based on this assembly line, which was designed with the help of Monroe and Associates. So what this assembly line has, it has 14 stations. Okay, so initially they're showing the battery pack manufacturing, but in terms of the actual vehicle assembly, it has 14 stations, and they are assuming 12 minutes per station. And so if you take an 8-hour shift times 60, that's going to be 480 minutes. If you divide that by 12, you get 40. So they're saying if a vehicle spends 12 minutes at each station, it can produce 40 vehicles a day. Now, that's probably unrealistic because people need to work these stations, and people are not machines. People need to have lunch. They need to go to the bathroom. They need to, they need to take breaks, and you're not going to get 8 hours of a productive assembly line, unless people are working like 10-hour shifts. I guess maybe that's an option. So, and Will believes that initially, in the first run throughs of these things, it's going to take like a day per station to really work out the intricacies of it. And it's going to take 1 day per station, not 12 minutes per station. So what that means is, to produce the first vehicle, they're going to have to start 14 days in advance. And then in September, so if they start 14 days in advance, sometime in September, because they're thinking that, the current projected first delivery is supposed to be in September. That's the latest word from someone officially at Aptera. Now that's kind of an off the record number, but that number is so we can't say who said it, but it was said that it should be September. So if that happens in September, what you're gonna get is maybe one produced sometime in September, and then there's gonna be a ramp. So the ramp is gonna happen by ratcheting down the time at each station on a weekly basis. So they're going to run the assembly line for a week, and they say, hey, we can reduce the time at all the stations. Let's reduce the time and ratchet it up next week. And then they also need to do, load balancing on the assembly line. There's going to be some stations that are going to take longer than they expect. And there's going to be some stations, hopefully, that take less time than they expect. And they're going to have to distribute the amount of work per station to the different stations, or perhaps increase the number of stations. They're going to have to do some balancing and reconfiguring of the station to make it work so that everyone's working about the same amount of time per station. Because the assembly line only moves as fast as the slowest station. So there's going to be this ramp. So every week you see that there is he's thinking maybe 1 per week for a while, and then 2 per week for a while, and then 3, then 4, 5, 6, 7. Then the ramp kind of increases more aggressively. And then eventually you get to about 35, 36 vehicles a day. Now, there's several ways to get to more than that. This model assumes a 5-day work week. You could go to a 7-day work week. That's if you can find the staffing for that. Most people want some days off, so you're not going to get the same person to work 7 days a week. So I don't think that's even legal, actually. But if you found enough people, you could work in shifts. Now, Will looked at the assembly line area, and he thought logistically there wasn't enough space to handle the number of parts and things that you needed to run 2 shifts. Because that's another idea, is to run 2 shifts and run a night shift and a day shift, and you can theoretically double the amount of vehicles produced per day from the same facility. And then obviously the way that Aptera is planning on doing it is starting a second factory somewhere. And there's many options. There was like Northern California, Georgia, Texas. There was Texas. There was other places that were mentioned. Now, some of these other places, not Northern California, but like Georgia, Texas, may have the advantage of like cheaper rent, and perhaps cheaper power, and also perhaps cheaper labor, which would all be good things for Aptera. But it makes logistics a little more complicated because you have to send parts to 2 different places. What you could do is you could expand the space in Carlsbad to do 2 shifts, and that might be anyways. There's various options for them to increase the production rate, but this Will is thinking, and this is again purely speculative, he's thinking that about April or May will reach full production capacity and reach a little over 2,000. So this would say, if you're an accelerator, if this production ramp, purely theoretical production ramp, um, is relatively accurate, you would expect delivery in early summer of 2026 for all the accelerators to get their vehicles. Now, this is assuming that, I mean, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we still haven't seen PI2. We've seen parts and bits of PI2, and PI2 is definitely coming together, but we have not seen PI2. They first need to build all the PI vehicles, 10 to 14 PI vehicles. They need to, test them, validate them, crash test them, all kinds of stuff, and then work out any changes that are necessary. Hopefully, no major changes are necessary. They need to find funding and close out this convertible note offering. And so these things all need to come together, and then this happens. And then what happens is generally, I think the thought process in the community is that Aptera is trying to, because after this convertible note happens, in order to get the higher volume production, they're going to need a lot more capital, way more capital than they have now. And the only realistic way of getting that while maintaining control is to do an IPO. And you want to time the IPO with some good news. And the earliest good news they can get, because they need this cash sooner rather than later, they need the capital influx sooner than later. The earliest good news you can get is delivery of the first production vehicle. So if you get delivery of the first production vehicle in September, you show that you have a working assembly line, you show that you have the logistics worked out, you have the supplier signed up, and you deliver a production vehicle to a customer. Then that is great news. That's when they're going to IPO, more than likely, and that'll happen sometime in September. That IPO money will then be used to fund this ramp up to high scale production. Okay, all right. Let me know what you guys think of this speculative production ramp. Do you think it's too aggressive or not aggressive enough? You think Aptera will be faster than this or slower than this? Let me know in your comments below. If you are one of the people with lower accelerator numbers, if you want to, please, you can comment your accelerator number and what your dashboard shows, and we can see if this 60 number is accurate or not. I believe that it is, based on the information we currently have. We just know 41 is definitely in 2025 on the dashboard, and 109 is definitely in 2026 on the dashboard. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.